Mate, so I think naturally racing was always going to happen, given family history. But when I was a kid, Dad used to take me to everything racing related. So, some kids played footy and soccer and did that. We did racing. So for a long time, Dad was real good friends with the Maiolo family. And then Johnny had the little off-road park out at Port Gawler. So it was like every Saturday and Sunday, man, we used to go out there. It was whether it was go-karts or motorbikes or whatever, like 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 3 wheels, like you name it, man, we were out there just dicking around. And then, you get older and you transition to bigger things and faster things. And, just everything was racing, man. Dad sort of stopped racing when I was, maybe like 10 or 11. He sort of stopped doing stuff and allowed, the progression of me to come through. And we just, raced every weekend until we were old enough to, I guess, get into Speedway and race competitively.
So he raced super sedans?
Yeah, so Dad raced, so my Uncle Kerry and Dad both raced super sedans. I think Uncle Kerry, I think they had like this weird section in like the 80s where they went to like Grand Nationals, which is like, I guess like late models of today, but just something they did in the 80s. So Uncle Kerry sort of transitioned into that, and Dad stayed in super sedans, and then I think Uncle Kerry came back to super sedans, and they were both extremely successful in what they went out to do and what they did. So we grew up with it, and the older you got, the more stories you heard about, how good they were. And, Dad was sort of always a bit left field though, right? So, everyone had a V8 super sedan, right? And Dad goes and builds this stupid ass turbo rotary RX-7 that caught fire every weekend. But, everyone still talks about it today. It was super, super fast and successful when he got it going, but it was just unreliable, man. And he just persisted with it and like won a lot of races in the car. But like anything, man, I guess you keep winning, you try and find those extra tenths, and it's not in the car anymore. People's perception of V8 super sedans were exactly that, V8 super sedans. So all of the technology and all of the development went on that side, and Dad was sort of hung out to dry. So
yeah, have you ever watched any of those old races?
Yeah,
there's a lot of them on YouTube.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So there's like I can't think of who the guy is on Facebook. It's like Passmore Archives or something, I reckon it is. And every now and again, man, one will pop up. Like when I was racing Dave Palmer's midget last weekend in Brisbane, we got on YouTube and started watching some stuff, and it was like the 1992 South Australian Super Sedan title at Speedway City like popped up on YouTube. So Dave said to me, he's like, "Well, do you reckon your old man's in this?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, click on it, we'll have a look." And then sure enough, like Dad started outside front row in it, and it was like V8, and then it's just like this rotary doing like 1,000,000 RPM. Like it's cool to watch, man, because obviously in 92 I was, 1, right? So, I wasn't old enough to watch it. So, to sort of, watch how good I guess he was. It's just cool to see, man. Like you never see that kind of stuff. No one plays it now. You don't really hear about it. So it's cool to watch.
Yeah, and I've probably ruffled a few feathers by saying it, but I think that those guys come from the real era of super sedans as well. Like guys were building stuff and there's out there stuff. Like you look at those 92 sort of races, there's like Tiranas and there's 5 or 6 different makes of car out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you speak to any of those guys that ran up the front those days, they did everything themselves. Yeah. So, I know for a fact that my Uncle Kerry, and probably still today, still builds engines, right? So, everything came out of Uncle Kerry's house. So it was, motors, diffs, gearboxes, everything those guys did. They maintained, they built, so those guys out in those days that were winning, I know a lot of it was money related too, like today, if you go out and look at a top level racing team today, money doesn't really buy you the success anymore because, you've got 5 or 6 of those guys out there that have the best of the best.
Yeah.
Whereas back in those days, if you had, an influx of cash flow, you could buy your wins almost. Whereas, you know, a lot of those guys that you watch and you see, especially in those videos that are dominating every weekend, they're dominating on stuff they built in their garage at home. And, you know, and I was fortunate enough when I started racing that, you know, Dad was really good at doing that kind of stuff, man. You wanted something, he made it. You know, you needed to fix something, he fixed it. You know, whereas these days, you know, everything's off the shelf, man. You know, you buy it. So I believe those guys are, like, they were real race car drivers. Yeah. The guys that win races today, even though, you know, they're very talented, that's what they are. They just rock up and race. You know, they don't fix stuff. Kyle Larson, classic example, man. He doesn't know how to work on a race car at all, and he's quite open about it. He knows how to drive one, but they don't work on it, man. You know, so I think those guys back in the day that, you know, that did everything, that was cool.
Yeah, and some of the innovation that was back then, which like doesn't seem like much by today's standards, but like you know, some of the stuff that they were like cooking up back then. Was,
man,
like crazy for the time. Like now it's nothing, but it's like some of the out of box thinking. And
stuff man. Yeah, some of the suspension and geometry on race cars that you've seen from like 80s and 90s, man. You know,
it's just wild.
They do some cool shit, like whether it worked or not, but
I just love the body styles from back then too. It was so cool to like watch stuff like that. There's like those big long Corvettes and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's like,
well, see, most of those cars back in those days, you know, they weren't chassis cars.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, a lot like today, everything's just a chassis car, right? So they just build the same car and put whatever body on it you want. Whereas, you know, back in those days, they were actually cars.
Yeah.
You know, they had a car and then they put a cage in the actual car and went and raced it. So at least they still resembled somewhat of a car. Whereas now, you know, you put whatever fiberglass or carbon body on that you want.
Yeah,
and it resembles that car.
Yeah, like all the supers look the same.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, they are just a chassis car now. Yeah. So, they just pick whatever they like and happy days.
Yeah. I sort of don't understand it how like they're all the same body, and then some guy's got a Camaro sticker on it. He's got the guy next to him got the same body panels, and it's got a Firebird sticker on it. And it's like, what?
Yeah. They just put on whatever, you know, whatever they've got at the time, man. But you know, technology, all that kind of stuff's come a massive way now. So it's sort of it is what it is, man. You know, you put on whatever you like and go racing.
Yeah, to be honest, it's probably a hell of a lot easier to ring a parts supplier and buy a nose cone for a super sedan than like imagine like trying to find like LJ Tirana front quarters or something for
and it all sort of changes with time too, right? So, you know, if you went and raced a street stock now that was a VY Commodore, you know, you can still buy bumper bars and headlights and, you know, whatever for those cars. Whereas, you know, back in the 80s, you could buy that for Tiranas too.
Yeah.
You know, like you look at a Tirana now and it's worth $1 million, you know, but back in the day, that was like $1,000 car.
Yeah.
So, you know, they just went out.
Up for Speedway.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So they just went out and picked out whatever they wanted and went racing. But yeah, most of the, you know, lightweight comes in, technology, aero, all that kind of stuff that's now plays a big part in motorsport. So, you know, they just sell what you put on.
Yeah. So you started junior sedans? Was that
so competitively we started in junior sedans. So, you know, we raced everything when we were kids, but nothing was on a real competitive level. And then I got a bit older and we went junior sedan racing. And we were quite good in that, man, you know, but like anything, you're a kid. So you just sort of do whatever Dad says and happy days. So then, we won a lot of races in junior sedans and we sort of progressed and, you know, it was a weird sort of avenue to go down because I wanted to go open wheels, but given, you know, the McCarthy name synonymous with super sedan and sedan racing, you know, everyone sort of expected we were going to go this direction.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go open wheel racing because, you know, you're 16, man. We're going sprint car racing, baby. You know, happy days. You know, we're just going to bleed Dad's business, you know, to the bone, and we're going to go race sprint cars. Everyone else does it, so why can't I do it? So, you know, much to everyone's surprise, I guess, we went and raced Formula 500s. And I mean, we were okay at it, but I don't think we were very good to a point that I thought we were going to be. Knowing what I know now as a 30-year-old, you know, you look at a lot of those guys that have dads or uncles or influential people in your corner that understand and know the class. So when we got out of junior sedans and the natural progression was to go sedan racing and I wanted to go open wheel racing, I probably should have gone down the sedan avenue, at least to begin with, just based on Dad's knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went and jumped in a Formula 500 and went and raced open wheel class, and none of us knew anything. Like no one knew nothing. Dad didn't know anything. I didn't know nothing. Any of the guys that were helping us knew nothing. Right. So we struggled. Guys were like, "Oh, hey man, like you got to move this, you got to change this. Like what bars have you got in it? What stag you got in it?" Man, I don't know. Like I didn't even know what a torsion bar was. So then, we sort of struggled to sort of find our feet of what we were doing and how we were doing it. Whereas, we probably, if I went to the sedan route, I could have said to Dad, "Hey mate, here's a car, you sort it out, I'll jump in and race it." And then you're successful, aren't you? Because all you're doing is worrying about racing. Whereas what we were doing is worrying about everything, and then driving the car was last. So, we sort of went open, and like I'm glad that we stuck with it now, because I feel like we've had a lot of success in open wheel racing, and it's obviously opened avenues with Hardwyer Murphy Motorsport that I'm with now, and my wingless program that we're obviously quite successful in. So it takes a lot of time to get there, but I'm glad we've done it, and I'm glad we are where we are, because sedan racing, you sort of just get to a point, and that's you're sort of done. I feel anyway. Not that take nothing away from those guys. They're fantastic race car drivers, but I just feel like once you get to a super sedan and you're sedan dominant, especially in this country, like I don't really know where you go from there. So
you got to go like the late models.
And like even late models now, man, like I sort of expected them to sort of like skyrocket. They all sort of came in, and it was things were happening and people were spending cash and they were going racing, and then it sort of just died in the arse and got stagnant. So whereas open wheel racing, even though the sprint car level at the moment I think far exceeds any financial backing that I have, it's still an avenue. You can still get there based on talent, I guess.
I think I've seen a bit of a resurgence in super sedans as well. Like
I think especially here, like South Australia, not so. Like I think Victoria still maintain a good car count, but like Eastern Seaboard stuff, man. Like you go to Toowoomba, and you watch a race like a big race at Toowoomba, man. There's like 45 cars in there, and there's like 30 of them that are good.
Yeah.
So you want to base yourself on the Eastern Seaboard, man. I mean, gets the same with midgets too, yeah. Like you base yourself on the Eastern Seaboard, and there's a massive car count, there's a massive amount of numbers, and there's a massive support for the class, whereas we just don't have it here. And it kills it, man. And, these guys that have good stuff, Dave Gartner, for example, who I class is probably one of the best to be in a super sedan, he does like 3 nights a year.
Yeah.
You just can't, even he probably wants to do more, but he can't. So
yeah, the travel side of
it. Yeah, exactly, man, yeah.
And then it all comes to budget.
Absolutely, man, for sure.
So how long were you in a 500 for?
I think we did like 3 years. I think like 16 years of age to like 19, I reckon we did a 500 for, or even maybe 18, because then I reckon 19 was the first year I went to America, and then I went like on and off for quite some time. So I think we did 2 or 2.5 seasons in the 500, and at that stage, the amount of money we were spending to go nowhere didn't really make sense. So we still did a decent amount of races in Adelaide, like South Australia, sanctioned races. And we still placed quite well, but you're racing against the same guys every week, so there were a couple of guys in that sort of era that were winning all the time, and we were sort of like 3rd and 4th. So, you'd go out there and you were going to run 3rd or 4th, and you just go home. We sort of, I think, Dad sold the Formula 500, and we sort of sat out for like a year, and I sort of drove a couple of people's cars, like I drove a modified sedan for a season, and, just sort of, I don't really know. I don't really know what I was doing, to be honest with you. I was sort of I wanted to go racing, but no one really knew the direction that we were going to go, because I feel like I'd put all my eggs in the basket of going open wheel racing, even though Dad didn't want to go and no one wanted to go open wheel racing. So I wanted to go, and it sort of bummed out. So, we just sort of, like Dad and I sort of just sat there and was like, well, what do we do? Do we keep trying to pursue this open wheel, direction, or do we go somewhere else? So I think for a good 2 or 3 years there, we were sort of, stagnant on what we're going to do. And I was just hopping in and out of guys' cars, of people's cars, and whatever sort of came our way. But in the interim, I was just flying back and forth from America trying to learn, about these cars and how they work and how you work on them and how you win races and how you be better. And, it sort of just, we came back from America after like the third or fourth time and went sprint car racing.
So who'd you go over with in America?
Well, so the first year we went over just as like a sort of a holiday, a bit of a look, and then the next couple of years we went over and sort of worked with Scott while he was sort of starting his sort of campaign on running his own deal over there, and then we sort of got tied in with a few of the guys that were helping Scott at that stage. So then 2019, I think, was the year, like pre-COVID. Where we went and did the whole ASCS 360 deal with Scott. So it was just flat out heaps of racing, heaps of traveling, and just literally living on the road. Like that's all you did. You woke up, you washed, you raced, you went back to bed again. And like it was really good to sort of know how to work like that.
Yeah.
Because I think when you come back, even in Australia, you very rarely have those like 3, 4, 5 nights in a row where you race, but you need to know how to attack those sort of races. And I think that year, even though I wasn't driving the car, it sort of opened my eyes as to, right, this is the direction that you need to like attack these sort of races. And, I was very much a crash and burn type of guy, right? So, I would win a lot of races, but that's it. That's all I did. So I would win like 3 or 4 nights, but I'd be like 10th, 6 DNFs and an 11th. Like that was my statistics for the year. So those sort of races, when you're racing 80 nights a year or 70 nights a year, you sort of very quickly understand that these guys will take their 5th place and they'll wash and they'll go home.
Yeah.
And then they'll come back the next night and they'll race. So that was a big eye opener for me of to how to be better. And then we raced sprint cars for a couple of years because I thought that was the avenue to go to. And it just didn't really work out for us. It just never really took off. And I think I sort of made a gentleman's agreement with Dad when we bought the sprint car that if we were ever going to struggle to put tyres on the car or put fuel in the race car, we weren't going to go race. Simple as that, man. Like, hey, if you got no money and I got no money, we're not going to go racing. It's no fun. I'm not going to drag a $100,000 race car to a racetrack and run on second-hand tyres because we can't afford to put off, in those days, like a $380 tyre on.
Yeah.
So we sort of got to the point we had a good couple of races there, and then, you just get caught up in stuff. You're in the middle of the pack, you're too good to be at the back, but you're not good enough to be at the front. So you're sort of in that middle section. So we got caught up in a couple of wrecks and, you bang a front end out and you crumple a wing, you bang this out, you break this, So we sort of got to the point where we're getting real tired of fixing stuff, and they weren't massive things, but just enough to, spend a whole Sunday in the shed or a whole Monday in the shed. So then I could tell Dad was fed up with it because, he didn't want to be there in the beginning, right? He wanted to go sprint car, super sedan racing.
Yeah.
That was him, man. He was like, he thought we were going through super sedan racing and we were going to be killer. So, I sort of dragged him for a good 7 or 8 years well past what he wanted to do. And then we just sort of said one day, we're like, man, we're done here. Like, we're done. This is too hard. No one's having any fun anymore. So we binned the sprint car, and then I was 20, maybe like 25 or whatever, and we're back in no man's land again, So we're like, hey, what do we do now, And it was super hard because I thought that I was good enough to drive a race car, but we just didn't go anywhere, we were just stagnant all the time. So it was super, super hard to sort of work out which direction we were going to go from then on in. So I went back to America and spent more time over there, more time trying to figure out how to go fast in these cars. And then we came back and we made a few decisions to build a wingless sprint because at that stage the numbers were sort of really good. It was an affordable class to get into. You didn't have to have cubic dollars to race it. And I just sort of said, look, let's just put some decent time and effort into this class and see if we do any good in it. Like let's commit to it. Let's put like a 2 or 3 year plan. Let's stop chopping and changing in and out of classes.
Yeah.
And let's put a decent plan together. And then same thing, man. Struggled with the fact that they have no power. I think that was the hardest bit. Like we got out of a sprint car and got back into a car, and I was just over driving it. You'd go into the corner and you had nothing. So it took me a little bit to sort of work out how to drive these cars. And once you do, man, they're a ball. Like, they're not the fastest thing in the planet, but, you put 20 of the best cars in the country together in a race, they're good fun. So we sort of just ended up there, man.
Is that a hard thing, switching between the wingless and the speed car as well?
I think initially it was for me. Like, so it's a weird one. So the versatility in a race car, I think, comes naturally to some people and doesn't to others. So I think if you've got to get into the car and you've got to sit there and mentally try and focus and remember on which car you're going to drive, I don't think you're going to do very good. Like I think that, if you have a natural feel for a car, you can sort of pick it up as you go. So I think the transition between the two cars, especially on the very same night, is hard because, you get out of one and then 15 minutes later you're in another one and you've got to, right, cool, we've got a job to do in this one, we've got a job to do in that one. So I think the transition initially was hard, but once I understood how a speed car drives to how a wingless drives, you reset. Get in one car, yep, cool. Get another car, yep, cool. So I think I picked it up pretty well, and like I don't think there's a lot of people in the world that can transition from car to car, and it is hard to do. But yeah, it sort of felt like, you're sort of in one car, you're like, yep, cool, we've got a job to do here, and then you're in the next car and you've got a job to do there. So I don't think it was too hard to make the transition, but I think it's harder to be good in both. Yeah. Anyone can drive both cars, but to be good in both, I think, is hard.
Yeah. So you're in the wingless for a few years before you got the phone call from Hardwyer Murphy?
Yeah. So it's actually, I never got a phone call, man. So this is a funny story, right? And Allison...
here we go.
Yeah. And Allison will probably deny every single bit of this, and I don't care because it's a funny story. So...
She's getting tagged. I'm clipping all of this.
Dude, she'll be... I know she'll be laughing right now because she knows what's going to happen. So Luke Dillon, who I'm very good friends with, and is possibly the funniest person I've ever met in my life, he said to me one day I was struggling in a wingless and I couldn't get it to do what I wanted it to do. And in his dry humour, he said to me to go run an American racer tyre. He said, the cars have no power. An American racer is an inch narrower. They're 2 or 3 inches normally smaller in circumference. So Luke said to me, why are you turning extra rubber if you don't need to? He's like, go to a smaller tyre. So this was maybe 2 years into wingless sprint racing. So then I started buying American races, obviously off Allison and Harry. And then, like everything, you buy more, you build up a bit of a rapport. And I knew that they obviously had a speed car. And from day dot, I was speed car. That's what I wanted to do, right? I always wanted to race a speed car. Never had the money. Dad didn't want to race them. So technically, I'm out. So I knew they had that yellow number 6 car, and I knew Harley Bishop drove it for a bit, and then Brett Island drove it for a bit, and then Andy Pearce drove it for a bit. And I'm thinking, man, you guys haven't really got someone solid in that thing, So then we started buying more and more tyres, and then after we'd sort of worked out how to race a wingless car, and we'd sort of worked out what frame suited my driving style and what setup suited my driving style, and we started to generate more and more consistent wins, it obviously put my name at the top of the headlines every night. So typically speaking, you win more races, you burn more tyres. So I'd keep going back to Harry and Allison's, keep going back. And anyway, I made the comment to Allison one day about who was driving the car, and I think at that stage it was when Caleb was sort of on and off the scene. So then Caleb came over and drove the Spike S-Slinger for the first year, and then they were going to build a new car. So I caught wind of this somewhere along the line. And then...
no, not the Speedway rumour mill.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, so I caught wind of it and I was like, right, we're on. This is me, baby. We're going to get this. So then at that particular point in time, I wasn't happy with the car that I was running in the wingless. So we bought a different car, and I built a new car and spent hours and hours and hours and hours developing a new car, trying to get that extra 5%. 95% in a wingless sprint, everyone's 95. It's that extra 5% that gives you consistent wins. So we tried and made some changes, and then we sort of hit the ground running real good at the start of last year. So of the 2021 season. Yeah. So we'd won like 6 in a row, like straight off the bat. Like, I think we started like 6 one night and won. Then, I think we didn't start off the front row the rest of the year. Like, we qualified directly on the front. Just had one of those years where we had no mechanical failures, no one crashed into us. It was just wild. Couldn't put a foot wrong if I tried. So every single time we'd won a race, Allison had said to me that, actually, no, I reckon Brett Island said to me, if you win a race on American Racer tyres, they give you a free one. So I was like, this is me. So every single time I won a race, I'd ring Allison. And I said, hey, we won another race, just to make sure that she knew that I was winning races. And then I won a race. Harry came out to a race at Murray Bridge, and I had a Hoosier tyre on the left front for some reason. I don't know, I think I might have had a puncture or something. We changed the wheel during the night. And I won that feature as well. So then I rang Allison on Monday and said, hey, won another race or whatever. And the photo from the victory lane had the Hoosier in it. So then she obviously used that to her advantage. She was like, mate, I'm not giving you nothing, You won with a Hoosier on it. So then we obviously, kept this sort of camaraderie between us for the entire year, but statistically, it was an unreal year. Like you couldn't not see how good we were. So at the end of the year, or close to the end of the year, I said to Allison, like, just give me the car. Just give me the drive. Just give it to me. She's like, no, we're not giving it to you, Anyway, so I hammered it. So I worked out very quickly that you tell Harry stuff that you want done or you want to know, but if you need permission, you ask Allison. they're the two things. Like, the buck lies with Allison, but you just tell Harry everything else. So I was just pissing in Harry's ear for ages and ages and ages about driving this car, and he was sort of like, maybe we'll try and do something, maybe we'll try, knowing that hopefully just some of that will just bleed back into Allison. So then we ended up, Harry said to me one day, we've got a test day or a practice day or sponsor day, whatever it was at Murray Bridge. If you want, we'll put the seat in the car, we'll go turn some laps. So I was like, absolutely, man. You tell me when and where, let's go. So we put the seat in the car, went to Murray Bridge. It was pretty slick, nothing to lean on, typical like sponsors day track, right? They're not going to do any prep. So we go out there and we put together 15 or 18 or 20 like pretty consistent laps. Well, I felt that like they were good in the car, So then we came in and Harry said, they did pretty well, That was sort of it. Packed it up, went back to Harry's place. And then he sort of got out of the car. So Phil, who's my crew chief, and me, we drove back in the trailer, and then Harry and Allison took their car and drove back to their place. So we got back there, and then Harry sort of got out of the car and he said, right. He said, he said, you can obviously drive the car. If you want the drive, you've got it based on this criteria, based on this, this, and this. So then after all of it, they had sort of just basically laid it out on the table and said, right, if you meet this criteria and you want to do this is sort of what we can offer you. So then we ended up doing a deal to drive the Spike S-Slinger for this year, and then much to Allison's disgust, I have absolutely slammed her for every single minute of the day that I can, because she made a comment to me early on in that first year before we'd won all those races that I was just a wingless driver. And she'd sort of said it to me as a bit of a joke, and now we obviously had quite a successful season in the midget the first year. So now, Allison was sort of like, you've had a really good year. So every time something happens now, it's just, it's not bad for just a wingless driver. We're just a wingless driver. That's all you've got. So yeah, she, I don't know if Allison was was super keen on giving me the ride. Well, not at least until I'd sort of turned those laps at Murray Bridge. But I think I pissed in Harry's ear enough for them to just go, I'm sick of this guy. Like, I'm sick of him coming here. Just let's just go out and run a couple of laps in it and see, and see what he can do. And then, I obviously impressed him enough for them to go, he might actually be okay. But yeah, it was a lot of back and forth, just absolute garbage of conversations to get to the point that we were in.
Yeah, right. That's, I'm sure Alison's going to be pleased that.
Yeah, she'll love it, man.
We'll be putting all that out.
Yeah, she loves it.
I'll tag her in all 40 social media pages that she runs.
Yeah,
as well.
she'll tell you, mate. She will message me quite often and just tell me that she's the heart and soul of that team and everything revolves around what Alison's going to do. But honestly, man, without and to be honest with you, speed cars in general would be dead without her. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
She the contribution and the time that she puts into, and a lot of this I didn't know, right? So I basically started driving for Harry and Allison and Hardwyer Murphy before I even knew that they were part of the committee and everything. I didn't know any of this stuff. So when we started going racing and, Allison was on her laptop and, doing everything. And then, they are also selling tyres and stuff too. So, you've got people filtering in and out of the trailer, trying to buy stuff, and Allison's trying to sell stuff and Harry's trying to do this. And, meanwhile, they're trying to run a 2-car team. And then, poor Murph, he's trying to crew chief 2 cars and he's got Caleb in one ear and he's got me in the other ear. And it's just, it was like organised chaos, man.
Alison's doing the draws for the
speed cars. Yeah, she's she does, I don't know how she does everything, man. Dead set, some of the times that I watch her do, the stuff that she does during the night, I think, man, you've got, a race team that you're trying to run. You've got things that you're trying to do. You've got X amount of people coming through the trailer, trying to either buy stuff or find stuff out or know where they're starting from, or even complaints, man.
I've been on the end of all of those.
Yeah, guys that come in and they want to complain about a grid draw or they want to complain about something. I'm like, man,
I'm guilty for that for sure.
Yeah,
so, times that by another 20 or something.
Yeah,
for sure.
she just and then always with a level head, man. Always, every time. Hey, man, you want to have a conversation? Sometimes I sit back and think, man, that's...
And to her, absolute credit, we had an issue at the Shannon title and she was the driver's rep. And I think both of the cars were in a heat. And I went to her and she walked away from watching the heat to do the job as the driver's rep.
Which, to be fair, I've said to Allison on multiple occasions now, there's something about Caleb and I being in the same heat races.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen.
We are literally,
the cars are just
not only are we in the same heat races, we normally start next to each other.
Yeah.
Is every single time, man, every time we go to a racetrack, we are either in the same heat races or we end up qualifying next to each other, or it's just every time, man. Every single time.
Yeah, so Alison's declined several times to do a podcast because I want to talk to her about the admin side of stuff, which is just hectic, which people will never see what they put into it. It's just if people think running a racing program's hard, imagine what they're doing. Is
honestly, the amount of and I've only been around that team for a short time. Typically one season that I've actually been hands on with those guys. What they do, Harry included, even Harry, he's the biggest larrikin in the pits and he's always about having a good time. But when push comes to shove, he's super controlled and he's super straightforward about what he wants done. And it comes with the race car too, you'll always sort of, I'm the absolute first person in the pit to razz Harry up. I love it. It's what gets me through the day. Caleb's super focused all the time, right? So he's always yep, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. He's pretty sort of reserved, pretty quiet sort of guy. I'm the complete opposite. I will go out of my way to find Harry just to abuse him. Just because I want to do it and just because it's funny and we all have a bit of a laugh about it and we all sort of, get a bit of a joke about it. But, you can sort of see with Harry when it shifts, it will sort of go to, all right, now shit's getting serious, people are complaining or, the car's not good or Caleb's struggling with something or I'm struggling with something or we need to fix something. It's it shifts, and he does it so good, and then he'll just shift back to normal Harry again. So it just takes a lot of time and effort, I guess, to get to that point. Like to own and to run a 2-car speedcar team and run speedcars Australia or speedcars SA and everything else that they're involved in. Man, the class would be close to dead without him, I think.
I've heard that from nearly everyone who's involved in speedcars.
Absolutely.
So it's it's probably the honest truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know all the ins and outs, but from everything that I've heard is definitely correct. So you're going again with them next season? Yeah, absolutely, man. So I jumped at the opportunity for them to go for another year. Murph and Tim Clark from New Zealand, I think they're putting together another car the same as Caleb's for me to race, and I think they're going to get rid of the spike. So then we're going to have 2 CP3s in the stable so that everything's exactly the same. And then, we'll go again for another assault on everything. And then, hopefully this year, now that everyone's sort of had a year to gel and get their heads around everything, and Murph sort of had a year to work out how I drive and what I like and what I don't like. Hopefully this year we'll hit the ground running and be good to go. Yeah, are you putting the S-Slinger in that as well?
Yeah, so we'll still have the same S-Slinger motor in my car. It'll just have, it'll be a CP3 car with just a few updates through the running gear. That S-Slinger rips. I've spoken to a few people that raced that car before me, Andy Pearce, Harley Bishop, a couple of those guys, man, that thing is underrated. It rips for an old engine. A couple of times that you'll get to those bigger sort of tracks and you'll feel like you're a little bit motored down. But man, like Murray Bridge when it's slick, Mount Gambier, those type of places, man, that thing's as fast as anything.
Yeah.
It rips for what it is. It just needs, just a track to sort of slow everything down a bit. The GRDs and the Toyotas and those types of things have so much torque in them that, you get sort of half bulked in a corner where it's pretty juiced up, man. Those things will stand out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas the S-Slinger just doesn't have that, But as soon as it starts to slicken off a little bit or there's not enough to grab onto, man, happy days, we're back in. So it's for the engine that it is and I guess the amount of upkeep that it costs because it's, really quite cheap to run and own, opposed to like a TRD or a GRD, the price tag on those things are quite expensive for an engine that, it's wild, man. I love it. And to be fair, I don't really think I've outdriven that engine.
Yeah.
I've never really come in from a race in a speedcar and gone, right, guys, we're out of motor. We need a new motor.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to that point where I think the only thing that we're lacking in that entire 30-lap distance is engine. So once I get to that point, then we'll address it. But, you've got to string 30 laps together, with zero mistakes to come in and have enough nerve to go, right, guys, we're out of motor. So, I'm absolutely stoked with where I am at the moment. Racing-wise and career-wise, we'll still obviously run the wingless stuff for the bigger shows that we've got, but the speedcar will take priority over everything next year. And then, we'll hopefully put together a good season again.
Yeah. Perth Australian title.
Yeah, Kwinana, I think.
Yeah.
No, I've never been there.
You've never been there either?
No, never.
Yeah, right.
No.
In nothing?
No, nothing at all. It's too far away, man.
Yeah,
it's literally on the other side of the planet.
It is.
I've never even been... Actually, I don't even think I've ever been to Western Australia in my life. I don't reckon I've ever been to Perth.
Yeah, right.
But to be fair, I'd never been to Toowoomba either, and we went around Dave's midget in there the other week and we did quite well. So I think Kwinana as a racetrack, I think it's probably a bit daunting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys look at it, especially in a midget. The amount of mile per hour that you would have in a midget. I think it's going to be a little bit daunting. So, hopefully we can... I don't know if they've sort of got any sort of races scheduled close to the Australian title or not.
They'd have to, surely.
Yeah. So, I don't we'll obviously sit down as a team and work out when we're going to leave to go and do that. But, realistically, if you can get a meeting or 2 meetings or something under your belt just to familiarise because,
they run a practice night there every Wednesday. There's a meeting on the Saturday.
Yeah.
So
I feel like that place, is just it'll be a bit daunting, you know,
Yeah.
like never been there before. You're getting in the smallest car, you know,
That's there,
that's there on the biggest track that's there, you know, going some ridiculous amount of mile per hour into the corner. I just feel like, you know, that's the one place that you probably want a few laps under your belt before you start doing it. Like, you know, even Payet, like I class Tom Payet as probably one of the best speed car drivers. You know, he's a bit radical, but I think he's one of the best, and even he comes unstuck at Kwinana. So, you know, that, you know, if he's coming unstuck there, then, you know, you need to really understand that place. You need to know how far to push and when to push. And, you know, that only comes with laps at the track. So that'll be an eye-opener for us, I think. I don't know if Caleb's been there either.
No, he hasn't. I asked him the other day. He said, no, he's never been there.
Yeah,
But,
so that'll be an eye-opener.
Troy Jordan told me that it's the only place he's ever felt sorry for a motor in like, his whole
It's the same. Like it's the same when we were in Knoxville, man. Like when you race a wing 410 at Knoxville, you bleed on the inside for engines. Like they just sound like they're going to explode. And that place is the same, man. You know, like if you get enough like power into the ground and you get enough wheel traction where it's not slipping, all that is just lugging motor.
Yeah.
It's just going to lug it, and then eventually it's just going to pull, you know, shit on the inside that's not meant to be there. It is what it is, man. It does it. But yeah, it's just such a big place, man. Such a big place.
Is it hard to comprehend? Because when I've never been there, so but watching from streaming and stuff, and you see that front straight camera, and you see how many haulers are on the infield. Yeah, that's when you're like, well, like the infield. Yeah, the infield looks like a little city.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, I've obviously never driven it, right? So it's a bit different for me, and I think a lot of the time when it's on TV or when you see a stream of it, I think it's a bit deceiving. Because the place is big, like, don't get me wrong, but when you're there standing on it, it's like Toowoomba. Like, so I watched several videos of Toowoomba before we went racing midget there the other week, and it looks massive. Like, you know, you watch it on pay-per-view and it looks huge, and it's all white, and then when you're on the track, it doesn't race anywhere near as big as that. Yeah. So then I think it's the same with that place, right? But it's just it is massive, like it's huge. But when you're there standing on the ground and you're standing there looking at it and you're in turn one and whatever and you're watching the cars coming, yes, they're doing warp speed and they're fast, but I think from an aerial shot when you watch it, it looks a lot bigger than what it is. Yeah. But yeah, man, the place it's massive. It's huge, you know, like if you're gonna have a lick there, you're done. Yeah. You're either getting carted out in a body bag or the car's over the fence. Like you don't have any repair bill from there.
Literally the main straight.
Yeah. It's just, and you know, that's the only bad thing about that joint. I think that if you're going to crash, man, you're done. Like there's, you know, pick up whatever you can out of it and then you're done. Like I've seen motors break out of motor plates there. You know, I remember Sheldon Hodenschild in one of the years that I was there running that 93 car with the silver wing on the top. I can't remember, I think it might have been 2015 or 2016. I was there with Scott and Sheldon ran down the front straight or the back straight end for end, and it literally pulled the motor out of the car. Like the motor was sitting in the rails and it was not connected at all. You know, there's just, you know, it's like career-ending crashes at that joint. That's the only bad thing about it.
Was it hard to get your head around the speed there?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think the setup for a race car is super strange there because of the wing speed and because of the speed of everything that sort of happens. It sinks the car into the ground so hard that you need to change everything. You know, so most of the tracks here, you know, your Murray Bridges and your Adelaides back then and the places that you used to race at never generated enough wing speed to really force you in the ground. Whereas when you go to places like that, man, it's all about ride heights. You know, it's all about ride heights and it's all about arm angles and everything because the sheer force of that wing, like, just cranks it into the ground. And it just changes everything, man. You have, like, no shock trouble, no nothing because you're just doing warp speed, you know. So if you can get a good balance in it, you're right. But just, the place, I think when you're standing there watching it, it looks super fast, but you still don't grasp how fast it is. Yeah.
There's a video popping around Instagram the other day. I can't remember where it was. I think it was Eagle Raceway, and going into turn one, they're doing 136 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
it's like 280
Yeah.
k's an hour, which like doesn't sound like super
Yeah.
fast compared to other
Yeah.
race car stuff. But when you're talking dirt,
Yeah.
and they've like thrown it in sideways at
Yeah.
200 k's an hour,
Yeah.
like it's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those tracks over there that you get to, and you're doing those speeds into these corners, but you never second guess it.
Yeah.
Like you go and race
Yeah.
and you think, oh, that was killer, and then because you're in the car and you're doing whatever, or you're standing on the thing watching your driver, do whatever he needs to do, you sort of never really contemplate the speed factor of it. We're not drag racing and we're not doing that kind of stuff. So, speed essentially not never, but speed essentially doesn't win races. Racecraft wins races. So, those guys that are doing those sort of mile per hour are always good. But if they get into the corner and hike, or they bike or do something, the guy's going to get past them. So I think the sheer speed of a sprint car sort of gets forgotten because the racing's obviously so close and so good. But yeah, some of those places we went to, like with Scott, when we went to do the ASS tour, we ran Sealands Grove in PA. Man, I reckon that joint's bigger than Knoxville.
Yeah.
That was like, dude, I was standing out of turn 4, which is where the pit, and you could not see turn 1. Like, it just wasn't there. It was like over there somewhere in the forestry, and then, Scott would sort of come in and sort of say, what does the castle look like? Man, I don't know. Like, I watched you coming to turn 3 and that was it. Like, they're just, some of those places in PA are massive, man.
Yeah.
And that's where I like, because they're super flat.
Yeah.
So, they're just, you're wide open as fast as you can go. And then it's like, there's a corner, and like Lincoln's the same, man. Like, it's like a hairpin.
Yeah.
You're doing 180 k's an hour, whatever, and then you got to stop. So yeah, it does. I think you forget about how fast and how raw a sprint car is, especially if you sort of like live in that world. I think it sort of just gets forgotten.
Yeah, that's sort of like, to me, they're like the most rawest form of racing. Like I can't watch Fiat supercars or anything like that. That's just
I think if you don't know it or you haven't grown up with it, you don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys look at dirt track racing as just like hillbilly stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Like, hey man, you race a dirt car, cool. Whereas, these teams these days have, they would have to be within 9/10 of a VF supercar team.
Yeah,
they would have to be.
I was literally just thinking that.
Inventory.
Yeah.
If you look at inventory, dollars, crew guys, like when I went to America my first year, and you looked at all of the guys there that were paid crew guys, right? And you think, man, like, how do these race teams afford to pay these guys? Fast forward, 10 years to where we are, 9 years to where we are now, and you look at teams like Jock Goodyear's team that has 3 or 4 paid guys, Jamie Beale's deal that has 3 or 4 paid guys. You want to win with these type of guys, you need that support.
Yeah.
You need those guys to be switched on. So we're basically just doing everything America does like 10 years later or 15 years later. So, these guys are generating sponsors now, that want to go and win races and are happy to pay money to win races. Well, then you need to then employ guys to win races.
Yeah, that's right.
And you need a $200,000 prime mover, and you need a $150,000 truck and trailer, and then you need 3 cars in that trailer and 2 motors and 2 everything. So those top level guys, man, like, you can't tell me they're not spending less money than a VF supercar team. Like, you can't be, man. Like, I would hate to know the amount of dollars that that those top level sprint car guys are spending, just to get up and down the road.
Yeah, I can tell you, and I'll probably tell you off camera because I'll probably get into trouble. But I know what someone who's in the top tier spends a year.
Yeah, it'd be crazy.
It's probably not V8 supercar money, because that's I wouldn't even have a clue what a V8 supercar costs. But you're assuming that like someone like Kenny Mack, who builds a sprint car and a V8 supercar motor, you're assuming that they're probably on par money-wise there.
Well, man, I would hope so. I can't really imagine that there's too much to differentiate between one or the other.
No, it's probably a lot more controlled with the V8.
Well, yeah, absolutely, man. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of, but you don't know how many motors these guys have got either, though.
No.
Like VF supercar was, like if you look at a top-level sprint car team, I would assume 3's the number. I would assume they would have 3 of them. like 3 top motors.
Maybe more. You have your primary.
Yeah.
Some guys have got 2 under a bench, and then they've got 2 in spare cars.
Yeah, but see, if you're paying, like, so let's just say as a round number, you're what, like 90 grand for a 410 now? Like 100 grand for a good 410? Man, if you got 5 of them, you're at $500,000.
Yeah.
Like, that's just in engines, man. That doesn't include the prime mover, the trailer, the car, the wings, the spare car, the 3 guys that are on a payroll to work for you. You know, man, it's like way above anything that I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, you can look at it 2 ways, man. It's either good for the sport or it's bad for the sport. It either lifts the level of the support to a professionalism, which I think Speedway deserves.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people still think that we race like open door postman pat vans at like Wakery.
Yeah.
Whereas that's not the case anymore, man. Like, there's a high professionalism in this sport. Or you look at it in the sense that these guys are producing this quality of car and this quality of fuel with this quality of money. The average Joe isn't going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So it depends on which way you look at it, man. There's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, it's a hard thing for me, like, being around Speedway so long, so passionate about it. When you see people knock sprint car racing, and you look at stuff like World of Outlaws, and you look at the guys who are like on the tour with that, run 90 shows a year just on that tour, not the other sort of shows that they do off of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, those teams are professional as. They would rival any Formula 1 team, like anything like that. Yeah. Like, some of those Woo teams would be more organised than some of the VS.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like, you know, and look at the payroll and the pay structure that a lot of those guys have too. I mean, like Brent Marks, who realistically, man, before last year, well, before, you know, this year, I guess, he was really a nobody, man. He was like a local PA guy that ran some races. And then he went out and won, you know, King's Royal. You know, he won the King's Royal, the historical big one at Eldora. Like, you know, I think he pulled in like $630,000 worth of prize money last year to run an open wheel. Like, you look at Jonathan Davenport, man. He was like 2.1 million in late model. You know, like, I understand that we're dirt racing here, but, you know, these are real deal things, man. Like, you know, this is the caliber and this is the level that these guys want to achieve to. You know, man, if you're on a dirt late model, right, and you're running the Eldora Dream or the Eldora Million or whatever it is, and you make $1 million driving a dirt late model, man, why would you want to do anything else? They're the best race cars to drive. You know, sprint car, dirt late model, midget, whatever they are. You know, they're the best race cars to drive. There's no communication to team. There's no strategy. There's no change in tyres. There's no, mate, you've got what you've got. That's it. That's what you get. You know, and if you can pull those type of dollars in to race these cars, man, I don't know anyone who wouldn't want to do it.
No. Yeah, that's it. It's and that sort of comes back to the money with, like, it's a thing that's sort of out of reach for a lot of people. But it's like, that's what, like, the wingless is a, like, obviously huge class because of the costs that are involved. Yeah,
I mean, the cost has changed a lot in the 5 years that I've been in it. So when I first started racing, the cost of the car, I guess, to win was a lot less than what they are now. So, you know, even still, you know, like, you can, if you had like 20 or 25 grand, you could buy a good car, like a good front running car. But it's not so much the buying of the car that's the concern anymore. It's more the tyres, the getting on the weight rule. You know, a lot of these guys now are like razor edge on everything. You know, the cars are filled with titanium, you know, like, same with this car, you know, like, you fill everything with the lightest, most economical stuff you can find to get to that weight rule. And then you know, everything that the rule book allows that you can do, you know, you do, and then you put new tyres on it, you put new, you know, there's even guys now I've seen in wingless racing running like double adjustable gas shocks and stuff on it. Like, they're like $1,200 a corner. Yeah. You know, so you've got one guy out there that's got a $10,000 complete car, and then you've got one guy out there that's got $4,500 worth of just shocks on his car. Yeah. So, you know, you can still go stupid. You know, so there's a lot of guys out there that I think still over-engineer a wingless car. Yeah. And then you still got the guys that that just want to go out there and race, man. Like, they want to go out there, they're competitive enough for them, and they just want to go out there and race. You know, they don't buy new tyres, they don't buy this, they don't buy that, you know, they're just happy to go out there and do it. And realistically, man, the level from a winning car to a 10th place car is not a lot. You know, there's not a massive margin in it. So I think you can still go out and be successful in a car that, you know, in this day and age is like a $25,000 car. But man, there's guys, you know, myself included, is just spending probably more money than what you need to, because the guy that you're racing with at the front is doing it.
Yeah.
So if he's going to do it and you're not going to do it, you're already at a disadvantage. So yeah, it's just like anything, man. You're always going to get big fish in small ponds.
Yeah.
And then in the same token, though, I find a lot with wingless. If you look through the states, you know, New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, you know, you always find those 2 or 3 cars that seem to be playing chess and everyone else is playing checkers. Yeah. And there's a reason for that. So yeah, I think that they are still the best class to get into price-wise. And man, like, you get 40 cars to a club show. Yeah. They're wicked. You know, if you don't do any good, you're like 10th in a Beam A, man. You know, or if you do good, you know, you're up the front. You know, if you can beat 44 or 45 cars at a club show, you know, yes, I understand it's a club show and it probably doesn't pay nothing, but you beat 44 other cars. Like, that's a pretty big feat. Yeah. So yeah, man, I still, and that's why I don't really want to get out of the class. I don't really want to sell my stuff and go 100% midget, because I still enjoy it, man. I still enjoy racing them. You know, it's a good camaraderie between a lot of the guys out there. You know, they're just normal guys. You know, there's not the pressure of performing for team owners or, you know, performing for sponsors that are tipping in $50,000 and $60,000 and $70,000. You know, you're at that level where, you know, everyone still knows that there's a bit of money on the line, but everyone's just normal. Yeah. You know, everyone's just, hey man, we're going to go racing, cool. So I still enjoy it, man. Yeah.
So I've ruffled some feathers before on social media when I've spoken about the engines and these things. As like someone who's in the top echelon of them, I suppose. What's your thoughts with this?
I don't. It's a hard one, man.
So from what I understand too, 2020-30 is the next time the engine comes under review.
So my issue with So, don't get me wrong, the cars would be 1,000 times better if they had more horsepower. But so would everything, man.
Yeah.
You know? So, the problem that I find with the engine itself in this class at the moment is just the availability of buying stuff for them.
Yeah. So it is starting to dry up.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is it starting to dry up, people are starting to cotton on to what everyone's using them for, so then they become expensive.
Yeah.
So, you know, back in the day, like 3 or 4 years ago, when I was starting to develop and build my own engines for winglesses, they were like $50. Yeah. So, you know, you'd find someone on Gumtree, the whole engine was $50. If you're lucky, you got a trans with it too. Like, it was killer, you know. Whereas now, you know, you'll pay like $500, $600, $700, $800 for an engine with no clue whether it's going to be any good or not. So then when you disassemble the engine and pull it apart, if you've got, you know, worn out components on the inside, you can't buy them. So you can't buy crankshafts and you can't buy con rods and you can't buy any of this stuff. So, you know, if you pull it apart and it's had an oil starvation problem and it's chewed a crankshaft, the engine is junk. Yeah. You know, you can't use it. So that's the hardest part for me, is trying to understand why they want to continue with an engine that is, you know, we understand that this wingless still is a budget class, yeah? But the word budget, mate, well, whose budget are we going on?
Yeah.
Like my budget, your budget? So I think the word budget is wrong. I think affordable is probably the more correct, the correct term to use. But, you know, with these increased costs in building engines and finding engines and getting machine work done and buying parts, you know, we're getting closer and closer and closer to being, like, you know, inaffordable to do it. You know, like I've seen some engines for wingless cars like $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 for a wingless engine. Now, you know, to anyone else that's ludicrous, but if you pull apart an engine, so you pay someone their time and their knowledge to disassemble an engine. Then you send an engine to a machine shop, right? And then then you pay someone for their R&D, right? Because someone has spent their time and their money to research and develop an engine. So you're gonna pay them a royalty for that, yeah? So then, you get cylinder heads, you get cylinder heads done and valves cut and all that kind of cool stuff. Well, mate, you've got like an $8,000 bill with the machine shop. Yeah. Well, then you put a race sump on it that is $700. Then you put billet valve covers on it. Then you put a new, balancer on it. You put new this on it because, you want longevity out of it. You want to try and minimise part failures. Well, mate, before you look at it, you've got like a 12 or 13 grand motor with no labour in it. Yeah. Well, then you charge, $1,500 or whatever labour to assemble it. You're at $15.5 grand. It's just, I can't, when they were $4,000 to buy, happy days, man. Put 50 of them in there, I don't care. Yeah. But at the moment, man, building them and first-hand knowing, I build these things all the time. They get, one thing that was $800 to do 12 months ago is now $1,300. And then you buy something that was $200 12 months ago, it's now $450. So, like everything in the world, I'm on the fence with it. Yeah. And I'm only on the fence with it because I still feel like the class is good. And like anything, man, you change the engine in the car, it opens up a can of worms. Yeah. It always does. Whether someone needs to be trained to know what you can and can't do, and, it weeds out some people that can't afford, like if you went to like an LS engine, like a CT525, say you went to the LS sprint car engine, right, which I think would probably be the most common sense engine to do. Well, because then it diversifies 3 or 4 classes. Yeah, like you want to go run non-wing sprint car, you can go run a non-winger, and then the next weekend you want to put wings on it and go run the LS sprint car, you can. So, it opens up the avenue. But then, you get the people that don't want to do that. So then they're going to disagree with it and be upset with it. And then it's going to weed out a lot of the people that are just sort of racing wingless because they're affordable. Yeah. But then it's going to kill, in my opinion, speed cars. Because then I'll find that you will find a majority of speed car guys jump out of speed cars because I guarantee you, man, you put a good engine in a non-wing sprint car, you get 50 cars a night. Absolute guarantee it. Yeah. So what happens there is especially in this state, is that you look at guys that are running speed cars or like even wing sprint cars for that matter, guys that are running that, they'll all just drop down. So some guy that will want to run a wing sprint car one weekend, but then there's a show at Murray Bridge that pays $2,000 or $3,000 to win a non-wing sprint car, they're just going to take the wings off it. Yeah. So then you add another car into it. And then the guy that's got a $70,000 speed car at home that can't race for 3 or 4 weeks because of whatever, well then they're going to go, well, this is crap. Non-wing sprint cars have just ran 4 times in the time that I've been waiting to race a midget race. So there's pros and cons in everything, man. Yeah. At this stage, they've got the motor, as far as I'm aware, the motor's locked into like 2030 or 2029 or 2028 or whatever it is. So at this stage, man, that's the case. I think their progression would still inherit a V6 engine. I can't imagine that they're going to do a V8 one. And to be fair, I don't care how many feathers I ruffle with this though.
Look out.
Right. If you are gonna tell me that a non-wing sprint car is too dangerous and that's why you can't run them, that is a load of shit. Because super rods are a non-wing sprint car.
Yeah, I had this exact conversation.
They are literally, they have a fiberglass body on it, and if you're going to flip that thing, that fiberglass body is going to do absolutely nothing. Yeah. So they're already a non-wing sprint car, and I can guarantee you, at a lot of racetracks in this country, a speed car would be 10-fold faster than a non-wing sprint car. Yeah. Because the speed car has more side bite and more drive than a sprint car, so you'd be able to drive it in faster. Whereas these things, if they had a V8, you would have to let them slide into the corner, otherwise you wouldn't be able to turn. Yeah. So you can't tell me that the whole reason that we can't get, a sanctioning body or some sort of, class together for a non-wing V8 is a safety concern. That's crap. Yeah. It's absolute crap.
Yeah, it's a hard one because in my mind, I think going something like the CT525 is great and it'll bring the class up, hopefully bring new people to Speedway, maybe bring the crowds back. Yeah. also has the opportunity to bring some Americans out in their off season.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I'm also, same as you, like, worried that it kills the lower end guys.
Yeah.
Wingless.
I think you'll find in any sort of class shift or change, you'll find pros and cons with it.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast. It just depends on what I think, from my point of view, is what's going to better the sport long term.
Well, it's going to have to at some stage if parts and stuff and the blocks and stuff are starting to come back, because they're pretty old.
Man, absolutely. And there's still guys out there that like stockpile stuff. Yeah. So there's guys out there that still have heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of them to stockpile them. But there's got to be a line in the sand where you go, right. I think a VP is like what, 1991?
It's 91 to 93. Yeah.
So what's that? 31 years old, man.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me that you need to use a component in an engine in a race car that's 31 years old because you can't buy a new one.
Yeah.
It's just common sense will prevail at some point in time, but at this stage, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the common sense part of it is because, like I said, the engine and the class at the moment is wicked. However, it has to change at some point in time. But I don't want to see the class go from a Buick powered V6 to an Ecotec powered V6, because an Ecotec also came out in 1996.
Yeah.
So literally all you're doing is going back to the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that would really frustrate me as an engine builder and as a competitor, is that we are no further forward. Like, we're going backwards, if anything.
Yeah.
We either need to go to like some form of controlled like LS engine, like whether that be a carby or a mechanical injection or something. If everyone's concerned about the EFI side of things and people cheating and not being able to police it and et cetera, mate, go to a carby.
Yeah.
Or go to a mechanical injection, man. Sprint cars run mechanical injection all the time.
Yeah. I sort of had the thought of, like, if they do go down the road of V8, have them not be able to compete as a winged car.
Yeah.
So that way there is no crossover.
Yeah.
Like,
the only benefit that I can see out of the crossover is the availability to resale.
Yeah.
So you've got to remember that Speedway, if you can recycle parts through Speedway, it's going to generate money.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like if Bob and Graham have $50,000 each, right, and Bob has to go and buy an engine from America for $50,000, he's got no money to race that year. But he's got the $50,000 engine. But if Graham can buy a second-hand engine out of a sprint car guy to put in his non-wing car for $12,000, he's got $38,000 to go racing. Yeah. Well, he's going to spend that $38,000 to go to these tracks and promote and race. That's the only benefit that I can see, is that if you can recycle parts through the connection of Speedway, you are going to save people money. They're going to then have X amount of dollars to go and do the racing. Yeah. And they're going to be able to show up to racetracks and support, racetracks and promoters and just go and do some racing, man. That's the hardest thing at the moment. Everyone you talk to, man, I got no money. Like, it's hard, man. It's hard to live. Interest rates went up again, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So guys that had that free cash or that surplus money to go racing, they don't have it anymore, man.
Yeah,
they need, we need to be able to protect the guys in the sport, because after all, man, if you don't have any competitors, you got no Speedway.
Yeah, that's right. And that's my worry about seeing the numbers doing away. The only other thing that I thought of was, like, you start the V8 like wingless, and and the V6s are still there, but at some point they will go.
They will need to have some sort of transition, only based on the fact that you can't just flick the light switch and tell everyone, hey mate, if such and such has just paid $17,000 for a wingless engine because they want to go out and win, and they've got one season out of it, and then old mate flicks a switch and says, too bad, they're done. Well, no one's going to buy that engine.
Yeah.
Like, guys on the road aren't going to go and buy a $18,000 engine, so then that becomes literally a boat anchor for them.
Yeah.
So they have to have some sort of transition to it, whether or not they sort of say, in 2028, hey guys, We're starting to make the transition through to whatever engine we're thinking about doing. Let's everyone use up what they've got. And then you'll probably find a lot of those guys will just use what they've got.
Yeah.
And then happy days. No one's going to then put in orders to, oh, mate, we've got 2 years, let's go spend 18 grand on a brand new one. Guys will start, and then, people will sort of sell, we'll sell one engine, and then someone else can buy that one and run the 2 seasons on that one, and then this guy's going to buy the new engine or manufacture or, do the R&D on the new stuff. So the recycling of the parts is the biggest thing. And in like the AWSR, in their, vision moving forward, they can't just flick the light switch off. And I don't think they will, but, for a lot of guys that have, like some of the top running wingless teams now will have like 2 or 3 motors.
Yeah.
Like myself included. So a lot of guys have different stuff now, and they've built up inventory over the past X amount of years with dollars invested. If you flick the light switch off, man, these guys are going to be, probably quite pissy at the fact that they've got $30,000 worth of wingless engines sitting there doing nothing, and the fact that they couldn't transition them out or do something with them. So I think a lot of guys will sort of have their eyes open, a couple of years down the track to sort of see what they're going to do.
Yeah, because that's sort of like almost how wingless sort of started. It was almost, besides the engine, everything else was sort of recycled from wing race.
Well, mate, only until like pre-COVID, it still was.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I still buy a lot of my tyres from Luke Dillon. Still to this day, there's, we still buy new stuff, but we use new stuff when we need to, and we run second-hand stuff when we don't. So even now, you can still get bits and pieces, but with the lack of sprint car racing since COVID, everyone's had to buy new. And then, then you get COVID and then you can't buy tyres. So not only are the sprint car guys not selling them because they need them, because they can't buy them, we can't buy them either. So then, it's chaos, man. Everything since COVID has just been a logistical nightmare trying to run anything.
Yeah.
Trying to have tyres to go do national titles. Like, our national titles in Brisbane this year. So, we were buying and trying to stockpile tyres in like October. Yeah, just so that we knew that we had enough staff to drive 4,000 Ks away and contest a national title. Because if you leave it till like the week before, like you would have done pre-COVID, if I rang up Allison and said, oh, hey, good news, I'm going to Queensland in a week, what have you got? She'd laugh at me. So it's just, it's a logistical nightmare at the moment, man. And just the recycling parts, man, I can't stress it enough how much it benefits everyone.
Yeah.
Like, you need to do it. Like, people forget about that, I think, in Speedway. The top teams buy new stuff. Everyone likes new, flashy, shiny stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. But not everyone can do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that stuff sort of needs, because of how, what's the word, like, because of how hard they run the wing stuff, it does get to a point where it's like no good for them anymore, and they need to offload it.
So like if you look at like drive lines and stuff like that, I know a lot of those top teams we did in America anyway, you'll get like 8 or 10 or 12 nights out of drive lines and stuff, and then it's that, how far do you push it? Do you pull it out and then sell it to someone else, or sell it to a 305 guy or something because you don't know if it's going to break? Whereas, like I bought a drive line back from America when I was over there for my car, and I've had it in there for like 4 years and never had an issue. Like, it doesn't have any wear on it whatsoever because they just don't generate enough horsepower to wear that stuff out.
Yeah.
Whereas those guys, they're wearing stuff out, but same thing again, man. It's the same scenario. They don't want to pull all that stuff out and then on-sell it. Because, if they go to, Maxwell's or QSS or one of those guys and say, oh, hey, I need a drive line for this weekend, or no, we haven't got any.
Yeah.
Because there's no manufacturer, because, the country that's making the titanium's getting bombed. Yeah. So, they just, so everyone's a bit hesitant on whether they're going to sell stuff or move stuff on, or, they'll pull it out and look at it and go, oh, that'll go again. Well, then them putting that drive line back in, someone else is going to go buy another one, whereas they would have bought that one. So it's a hard thing at the moment, man. It's the same for everyone.
Yeah, it's everything shipping wise and like just it's gone crazy through after like post-COVID. Like,
Yeah.
I know what it's like with construction. Like, there's stuff that's still just so far behind because just the shipping and delays and
I don't know if they're using that just as a thing now though.
It
Like,
does.
you know
seem
what I mean?
like,
Like,
it. Like everything is like, prices, shipping price up. Like,
we even get it at work, like at my normal job, man. You know, you sort of like, it's hard because of COVID. Is it though?
Yeah.
Like, dude, we got something delivered from Melbourne the other day, and it was like 10 days, man.
Yeah.
And like on Google Maps, it's like 7 days to walk there. But I was like, why is it, but then we can buy stuff from like Summits in America and it comes here in like 12 days.
Yeah.
So, like, is it really a thing anymore? Or does anyone really care about it anymore?
Yeah.
But, it's a good excuse, man.
It's the kick on. Everyone's making money from it except for the end user.
Mate, someone's got to be, mate. You can't tell me that this was a thing if someone wasn't generating some sort of income from it.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
All right. Thanks very much, Jack.
Easy, man. No worries.
Yeah, we'll keep a keen eye on what's happening next season.
Yeah, man. It should be a big year, man. So hopefully everything goes to plan and we get some good races in and we don't have another pandemic and it doesn't rain and all that other stuff that it does. And yeah, hopefully we can get a good 20 or 25 nights worth of racing in next year in both classes and get some wins.
Yeah. I think I stirred up Andy Pearce the other day about the triple header that we did.
Yeah.
At the start of the year, I said, Bordertown coming on, there could be quite a good run there between Bordertown and Portland. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Portland now.
Yeah.
Since I've been there.
See, I raced Portland once in a 500, man.
Yeah.
But that was before, like, they won it now or something, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's different now, but yeah, if you could get like a string of like 5 or 6 or 7 nights, that's the go, man.
Yeah.
Like even if you had one at Murray Bridge, I'll start at Murray Bridge, go to Bordertown, go to the Mount, go to Portland, go to Simpson, go to Warrnambool.
Yeah. They're all good because they're all like sort of that 2 to 3 hours away from each other, like over consecutive nights.
Yeah. I think a lot of those guys would jump at the opportunity to do like 6 or 7 nights worth of racing. Like Indiana Midget Week's on like right now.
Yeah.
Those guys, I know it's a different sort of level, man, but everyone gets amped about it. Like there's something about racing consecutive nights that everyone's like, let's go do it.
Yeah.
So
whereas it's sort of like maybe a fortnight would be sometimes a short break, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah. It's just, I just think that there's just something about it, man. There's something about like packing up to go race like 6 or 7 nights or whatever. And like Caleb and I have spoken about it plenty of times. Well, not plenty of times, but we've spoken about it, like to just, you have a bad night and then you reset.
Yeah.
But you reset the next night. Like you don't have to stew on it for
that's what he was saying to me. Like he sits on it all week.
Yeah. You just, it's sort of like, it's just the more you race, the better you get.
Yeah.
But then the better you can control what you can control. Like I understand that a lot of things are out of your control. And as a race car driver, it's extremely hard to be positive and be upbeat about the stuff that's out of your control.
Yeah.
So, if you have a bad night or something goes wrong or you have a mechanical failure or you get a flat tyre or something that you can't control, it's extremely hard to get back in the pit, get out the car, go, yep, cool, we're all good, because as a race car driver, you want to win, right? So as soon as something happens, you're like, this has happened or that's happened, and especially if you run up the front and it happens. So to be able to reset and start again the next night, and if you have a really good run the next night, you completely forget about the night before.
Yeah.
Whereas, if you have a bad night and, you don't race for 3 weeks, then you just stew on it forever. And then, you get to the next race meeting and you're like, if you don't do good at this one, then what happens? You got to wait another 3 weeks. So that back to back to back, I think is super exciting from a race car driver point of view. Because, if you have a bad one, it's only 18 hours until you're back in a race car again.
Yeah.
Which is, typically speaking, that's what everyone wants to do, man. Everyone just wants to be back in a race car. So the quicker you can do it, the better it is.
Yeah. It'd be great to see something like a midget week put together.
Yeah.
If we could get it streamed and try and get some corporate dollars.
Yeah. I looked at Toowoomba's calendar the other day, and between like wingless and speedcar racing, they've got like 7 nights in 12 days or something. They race like Boxing Day and then like the 30th and the 31st, and then the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and like the 12th.
Yeah, right.
And like some of them are GSA speed car rounds, and some of them are like wingless nights. And I was like, how good, man! Just pack both up, go up there for just like if
Yeah,
you went up there.
that's right, yeah.
If you went up there for like a 2-week period or a 2-and-a-bit-week period, man, you do like 7 nights of racing.
Yeah.
That's like an entire Murray Bridge calendar.
Yeah, that is the one crazy thing that like blows my mind is like, and it is due to population, so I understand that, but the amount of racing that you can do in America is just, it's insane.
Yeah, a lot of it is just population dependent. You know, so you go to a lot of those sort of like look at Eagle, Nebraska. Like that high limit race.
Yeah.
Like, so we raced at Eagle, Nebraska, and that's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like the middle of nowhere, right? And that place was standing room only on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they pay 23 grand or 32 grand or whatever it costs to win that race, to win. But man, you know, those guys love it. You know, they live in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So, you know, like they probably did absolutely nothing all week. And then all they did was like, kill it, let's go to the races. And those sort of Midwest country towns in America are either like football related or baseball related or racing. That's it. You know, so you drive into those small towns and there's a baseball field on your left and there's like a football field on your right and there's a racetrack and there's a bar. If you're not in one of those 4 things, you're not in the town. So, you know, those guys love it, man. Like they love it. They take their campers there. You know, they make a holiday out of it. Whereas here, it's a lot more, we'll pack the car up at 2:30, drive to the racetrack, watch the racing, drive home, continue on. Whereas those guys, man, they live and breathe that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially in the Midwest, man. The Midwest is like Indiana, Iowa, you know, even some of Texas is like that too, man. But they just live and breathe it.
Yeah.
Man.
I know there's like a few tracks in Indiana. They run every Sunday.
Yeah.
No matter what else is on. Like World of Outlaws could be down the road by like 10 miles. They're still running every Sunday. That's
and a lot of those tracks that do that, loyalty prevails.
Yeah.
So, you know, they'll still get like 30 or 40 or 50 cars a night because they're all loyal.
Yeah.
You know, loyalty is everything to those guys. So yeah, they live and breathe it, man. The PA Posse versus Outlaws deal, you know, they still run like if World of Outlaws is at Williams Grove on Friday night, they will still run weekly at Port City.
Yeah.
Like that, it's too bad, man. Like they will still run a weekly show at Port City. So, you know, it's just they're dense in population, which is obviously what generates, you know, the money that they can race for and the nights that they can race for. But if we can get some sort of, you know, thing going to sort of generate this, you know, the more you race, the more the sponsors are going to get plugged for it, and the more you can generate return on investment for those type of guys. So I know it's hard to race, you know, weeknights, but you know, back in the day, like like when my dad used to race, you know, they would race like Friday night at Speedway City and Saturday night at Mount Gambier and Sunday at Warrnambool.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was called a Tri-City or Tri-State or something like that. But, you know, that was like a normal thing for those guys. You know, so like they would all work Friday and then at 3 o'clock on Friday they would drive out to Adelaide and race, you know, like, and they were racing for like $700 or $800 a night to win then. You know, fast forward 35 years and we race one Saturday a month and it pays $120 to win and it costs you $400 to get in the gate. Yeah. So, you know, somewhere we went wrong.
Yeah.
But we just, if we can have some sort of, you know, some sort of straight and narrow to get it back to where, you know, it's enjoyable for people and, you know, you don't have to necessarily generate an income, but it'd be nice to break even every now and again, you know?
I'd just like to see more regular people come to Speedway, not just the diehards that you see there.
And I think it's based on the perception that everyone still thinks it's like hillbilly racing.
Yeah.
You know, everyone just thinks, oh man, you race dirt. You know, like you tell someone that you race a Super 2 van supercar, it's, oh man.
Yeah.
You know, that thing's wicked, like how good. You know, because they have, you know, well, not anymore, but Clifton 500, that's now the Valo 500, whatever it is. Then you take a sponsor or a potential sponsor or someone that has a financial backing for your race team to a place like that, it's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, they got a corporate box, they've got alcohol, they've got big screens, they got pit walks, everything. Speedway needs to find a way that they can introduce stuff like that into our sport.
Yeah.
You know, if I want to take a or anyone for that matter, wants to take a potential sponsor to a racetrack, you need to be able to provide them with something that they can either see they're going to get a return on investment or something that they're actually going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Like they're the two things that they want. They either want return on investment or they want to be able to go there and enjoy it. So yeah, I just, the pit walk, especially at that 50 lapper, man, that for me was probably something that I've thought about a couple of times. Especially when you see the kids hanging off the fence. That was sort of when I was like, man, like, if we want to talk about trying to generate, a positive outlook and some form of trying to draw people back into it again, just imagine if there was a guy there that was a successful businessman or someone that was trying to get into the sport that really didn't have an avenue in or out and didn't really know anyone and only had, came there to the speedway based on, oh, hey, mate, you should come check this out, or hey, mate, my buddy races this, or I sponsor a car here or whatever. And they've got a couple of small kids that want to come in and have a look at cars and stuff. And, mate, we're not doing anything. There's tractors on the thing, everyone's in the pit standing there doing nothing. Just open the gates, man, for 20 minutes. Let them come in, sit in some cars, get the day, it's just, I don't see any negativity about that. I don't see anything that could possibly go wrong. Like there's no cars moving, literally have a siren or, some sort of red flashing light or whatever that, that's when you got to go back. And most of the time, if these kids are 6, 7, 8 years old or whatever, and they've got their parents with them, they're not going to run rogue.
Yeah.
They're not going to jump into someone's trailer and, start tearing stuff off the walls, and they're not going to do a massive bolt down the dummy grid and, So yeah, I just think that there's a couple of different avenues that we can go down just to promote it a little bit better than what we do, and I think in turn, it'll have some sort of benefit from it.
Yeah, because sometimes that conversation, like some people have ended up sponsors by accident sort of thing too. Like they haven't intended to go sponsor a sprint car. They've bumped into someone or whatever, and they've just started a conversation. And next thing they get
absolutely, man. Absolutely. And most of the time, it's based on who you are as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're a guy that's winning a lot of races, and you go to a speedway track with someone that has common knowledge with the track and the people and the cars, they'll often say, oh, hey, man, this is a guy that wins everything.
Yeah.
Or, hey, man, watch this guy in the blue car. He's going to win everything. So then you're immediately fixated on that blue car, aren't you?
Yeah.
Well, then if that blue car does really well, and then you go down to the pit afterwards, and then your kid who's been sitting next to you says, oh, hey, let's go down and look at that blue car. You go down there, have a chat to the guy, and then, oh, hey, man, actually, I would really like to get involved. Yeah, cool, man, do it. So a lot of the time, I think you'll find that sponsorship comes one or two ways. It's either someone that you already know, or it's someone that you get done by accident.
Yeah.
It's never, especially what I find in this country is it's never someone that's got heaps and heaps of money, and then you give them a sponsorship proposal, and then they look through it and they call you in and you have a meeting, and then you have a handshake agreement on what you're going to do, and you walk out and take their money. That never happens.
Yeah.
You either give them proposals, and no sooner you give them to them, they throw them in the bin because they're not interested in it, or it's someone that or you've been in business with. Like we find that a lot. The majority of my car for a long time, including now, is all friends of mine.
Yeah.
So Jay Floors is one of my really good friends, and like Jared and my business that we spend every day there is on the other side, and then Ultimate Engineering, who's Phil, my crew chief, Phil and Troy. It's really just people that the Speedway shop down here, the Allison. It's just it comes down to just people that I find, and then if you're successful, then you might find that someone wants to give you some money. But at the end of the day, man, if you can get a financial sponsor that's just pure wants to be a financial sponsor and wants success, I find that's pretty hard to come by, especially in this country.
Yeah, it's different, and that's probably because of the corporate backing is not quite there. Which obviously again is something that's population driven. But
absolutely, man. And I had this. I can't remember who I had this argument with. I think you had
an argument with someone.
Yeah, true story. It wasn't a bad one. It was like a normal one. I think I was at Archerfield for the Australian wingless title, I had a conversation with someone about this, like about money and speedway and cubic dollars and people that put it in. Most of the time that you find someone remember Dan Morton? Remember that James McFadden drove for, and he ran World Series and had like 2 semi-trailers and shit. So guys like that, they don't come around very often. Like once in a lifetime, if that. They have heaps of cash and run it for like 3 years and then fall off the face of the earth. Because that's normally what happens with these guys, right? Because from a business point of view, racing a sprint car is not a good business decision at all. Like if you looked at how much money goes in to how much money comes out, it is not a good business decision. So normally when you find these guys that build these teams and have these teams of these big dollars, they have the dollars from somewhere, and it's normally because they're good businessmen. So I find that a lot of those guys that you talk to, and especially with speed car teams as well, you'll find that whoever is the kingpin of the team that has the financial backing is a businessman. They've either got their own business, or they've got businesses, or they've got some sort of form of being able to generate an income, a wealthy income. After 2 or 3 seasons of racing sprint cars, unless there is some sort of return on investment or they absolutely die hard, bleed for the sport, they are going to pull the pin on it because it is not a good return on investment. It's not a good business. So I find that the more of those guys that you can find that you can turn into diehard fans, they start as a financial backing, then they turn into diehard fans, they're the ones you want to keep. Because at that point in time, the money side of things that they initially went into with doesn't really play a factor anymore because they just want to go. And then if they want to go, they're going to spend a bit of money here. Like Jack Berry, for example. So Dave Palmer, who I drove the midget for, so he's been friends with Jack Berry for ages. He has helped countless amounts of guys throughout his career of being involved in Speedway. And then it turns out that Jock Goodyear's using his truck and trailer this year. He just gave it to him as hey man, use this if you want. This guy's really got nothing to do with, a whole lot of racing at all at the moment, but he's just a diehard race fan. And then Jock's obviously been doing really, really good this year. So, it helps when you've got success and you've got like a professional team like that. But, if you can keep those big money dollar guys, Luch Monty's exactly the same. He's obviously got a really good business. He generates a lot of income and supports Western Australian sprint car racing, but he's a race fan. So that's why he keeps coming back. He keeps presenting these race cars and getting Tyler Courtney's and Matt Dumsneys and all these guys to go race for him in Perth. And not that he comes over here very often anymore, but, they used to, man. Like when Steve Lyons was driving for him, man, they were over this side of the country all the time. But I just think deep down, regardless of the money, he's a race fan. He wants to go racing. And then, I think if you can get a couple of them, you only need one of those to come through the pit gate a night and you're good to go.
All right, Jack. Thank you very much.
Easy, man. Thanks heaps. Appreciate it.
We'll see how this season goes and do another one.
Take one at a time, man. One season at a time. Should be good, man.
All right, man. Thank you very much.
Easy. Thanks heaps, man.